Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, we set our Alarmo for 5:30 because we have an early appointment at the DMVO. Take any road you want, and the Nintendo Cartridge Society takes it with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as I'm always joined, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. We've got a good show for you today. We're going to be talking about the news from the week, including the Alarmo. What are we going to do? We got to talk about the Alarmo. And then on Thursday, we're celebrating a decade of weird, dumb Nintendo toys. But Mark, in the meantime, how's it going?
It's going great. I feel like
Yes.
we need to explain
Yes, we need to explain it a couple times, I think.
I
right.
think so.
Normally we had been saying it's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you.
And we did that for 8 years.
We did that for 8 straight years. 800 episodes, 798 until I was like, now it's time to start auditioning new lines of dialogue from the original Legend of Zelda. So last week on the previous episode, we did Master Using It and You Can Have This. And now we're trying Take Any Road You Want. I like this one.
Yeah, this one worked well. Yeah, we're going to be marching our way through the original Legend of Zelda. So don't be alarmed when it changes every episode.
Right. And and look, I don't know how long we're committing to doing this. It's something I started. Now I have a list.
I know, but the unfortunate thing is that the history of the show is that we will commit to it and just continue to do it for another 800 episodes.
Yeah, well, yes. But like the thing is that like this is change. We've committed to constant change.
Yeah.
So I don't know. At some point, it's going to go back, right? I don't know. I'm trying
Dragon Quest XI Echoes of Elusive Age Definitive Edition for the Nintendo Switch.
That's right.
Would like to have a word with you.
Well, I mean, there are some things that are just rules.
Yeah.
You know, there's things that we must obey. Mark, I ordered the Alarmo immediately before I even like a question like, is this a good idea? I was like, I have to.
I hadn't even watched the video yet. I was worried it was going to sell out.
Look, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to all of that in a minute. But first, I just want to let people know about patreon.com/Nintendo Cartridge Society, where you can go to support us. If you are supporting us at the 8-bit or 16-bit levels, you get access to the miniseries that we put out once a month, like NCS Arcade.
That's right. We're in Season 2 right now. We just released an episode on Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow.
That's our September
That's our
episode.
September episode. And then for October, we're going to be playing Echo the Dolphin for the Sega Genesis. And I have to say, I'm a tad worried because every time I brought this up to you, and when we announced this on the Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow episode, the response in the Discord was like pity for us.
Yes,
Fear and pity.
You suggested it to me, and I think I got quiet. You know,
sad a little bit.
And I was like, okay, all right. Feels like the right thing to do, but I'm not looking forward to it.
But anyways, that's
what's happening.
Speaking of things we commit to,
yes.
That's what we've committed to.
Look, we'll have a good conversation about it.
Yeah, for sure.
We
made it through Jet Force Gemini. We can do anything.
That's not true.
We made it through an episode discussing Jet Force Gemini.
So
we
can
do
true,
anything.
Yes. Yes, I agree. But in the meantime, the Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow is available now to supporters at the 8 or 16-bit levels. If you have any thoughts or questions or anything you want to add to our conversation about Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow or any of the sort of Igavania Castlevania games, you can email us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com. And we will incorporate those emails into our listener feedback episode, which also goes out on Patreon, but goes out to everyone who is following us there at any level, including the free levels. So if you are supporting us there or not, please send in your thoughts so we can talk about them on the special episode that everyone gets.
Yep.
And then we also have Discord, which is a place where you can pity us for playing Echo the Dolphin. Email us and we'll send you an invitation. You get right in there. Last other thing to plug here is, of course, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle source book. that has been released over the course of 4 separate issues. All 4 issues are out now. I wrote them all. Every word in there I wrote. That's 100 pages each.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
And mutagen, probably. So check those out. Like I said, they're in stores now, or if you're waiting for the collection. I believe that's still coming out in January sometime. Very excited to see this fully bound thing, which we added like 15 pages to, and it's got just a bunch of cool stuff.
Incredible. We'll have to do a giveaway when it comes out.
We will have to do a giveaway.
That'll be fun. We'll do that.
These books are fat. Again, it's a 400-page like hardcover volume. So we'll have to figure out who pays for postage. We'll have to figure it out.
I'll pay for postage.
No, we'll figure it out.
Fine.
We'll figure it out.
That would be really funny to do a giveaway, but be like, but you pay us for it.
Yes. All right. Mark, that's all the business we have up top. I feel like we've got a big show today, right? Like the news is, there are many like tendrils of the news that are meaningful, impactful in the world of Nintendo.
Yeah, totally.
So in the meantime, let's talk about what we've been playing. I've been playing Pokemon Blue, playing the original Game Boy game on my 3DS because I got it before, I kind of got it like right as it was released. I was about to say I got it before the store shut down, which is technically true, but the two things are unrelated. And because our buddies over at Super NPC Radio, their Games Club free feed is now caught up to their playthrough of Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. I had set myself the goal of playing along with them. They do, it's over the course of like 12 weeks or something like that they're playing just like little chunks of the game. And so I was doing that, but then I got COVID, I got sick. I didn't really have the attention span to like watch a movie or play like a more demanding game or read anything or, whatever. And so I just have been playing Pokemon Blue kind of a lot, and having a fun time.
That's great. How does, because you've played other Pokemon games, but I guess you can't transfer backwards, right? You can only transfer forward.
Well, yeah. If there's, it depends. The thing is, I can't transfer anything anywhere now. So there is the Pokemon Bank app on the 3DS. Fine, great, good, works. However, you can only get Pokemon into the Pokemon Bank by using the Pokemon Transfer app. The Pokemon Transfer app is something that you need to download from within Pokemon Bank.
Oh.
And now that the eShop is totally shut down and like all of that stuff is gone, you cannot download Pokemon Transfer.
So there's no way that you would be able to trade with anybody either.
Yes, I could trade with someone if I were trading between another copy of Red, Blue, or Yellow who was playing it on DS.
Oh, because you could just use like
the local connection.
Yeah, the local connection.
So like that is still possible. So if I know someone who does have Pokemon Transfer on their 3DS, I could trade a Pokemon to them. They could transfer it, put it in Pokemon Bank, like graduate it up to a more like recent version of Pokemon, and then trade it back to me within that version of Pokemon.
Simple.
It's easy peasy.
So I've never beat Red or Blue. I've never played either of them to completion. I did play Pokemon Let's Go Eevee.
Yes,
which is kind of like a remake of those. Are you enjoying going back to?
Yeah, I mean,
Blue?
I'll be honest. I don't think I've ever actually beaten Blue. This is probably about as far as I've ever gotten. I've got 3 badges, and I'm currently in that town where there's this tower erected to honor the memory of deceased Pokemon. It's some weird, grim thing where people are like, yes, my Pokemon died. Now I'm here.
Who's your starter?
Starter was Squirtle.
Uh-huh.
He's now a Wartortle, which is nice. Looking forward to him becoming a Blastoise. Those medium evolutions, man, I don't think any of them are really nailed, right? Like, sometimes they're good when they're big, sometimes they're usually good when they're small, and that medium phase is just like, oof.
Well, they're like teenagers.
They're like
it's always a little
teenagers.
awkward.
It is a little awkward. So he's anchoring the party. I got a Pikachu really early that I've been riding with. As soon as I get a Thunderstone, I'm gonna evolve him though. I wanna Raichu, baby. And then I've got a Wigglytuff in my party. Who I taught Body Slam to, and so he's it's very funny to imagine this Wigglytuff body slamming Pokemon. There's a Geodude in the party. I've got a Kadabra that I would like to trade to evolve him into an Alakazam at some point, and the Pidgeotto at this point.
Sounds like you have a good gang, like
Yeah.
a good crew.
Yeah, it's good. I got no firepower, right? I've got electricity. I've got water. I've got like psychic-y guys. I got my weirdo Wigglytuff. But yeah, I'm missing fire. So I'll pick that up at some point, but I don't really know. You know, I'm occasionally consulting a guide as I go through it, but I'm kind of just like experiencing the game as it comes to me.
How are you feeling? Like, I know it's on your 3DS, but basically playing a Game Boy game, and just the limitations that come with that. Just like the number of buttons it takes to accomplish something, or the menus and all that.
Yeah, and things do go slow. The modern conveniences of Pokemon games where they like tell you what the moves are that your Pokemon are about to learn, or all your Pokemon gaining experience points at the same time if they're in your party. Like all of that stuff I do miss, but there is something about the limits of the Game Boy that are letting my imagination fill in a lot of the gaps that the sort of like uncanny valley of like modern Pokemon games don't and like can't fill in. But like provide you with so much information that like I don't know, it's so easy to be like critical of modern Pokemon games, to be like, oh, those animations are kind of like sluggish or whatever, but like the difference is when you're playing it on Game Boy, like a quick attack is like the character slides away and then there's like a slash on the enemy and then the character slides back. And it's just like, oh yeah, like I can I am enjoying engaging in the abstraction is kind of what I'm saying there. And also the fact that there are only 150 Pokemon in this thing means that it's like imminently manageable. I am reminded of Pokemon all the time that like, I was like, oh, I forgot that this thing is in here, or that there was a creature like this. Graveler? What the heck is a Graveler? What a weird looking dude. But it all feels like a knowable set of characters, which is not how I feel about a modern Pokemon.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true. Like, there's probably way fewer types and all of that as well, right?
Well, I don't think there are too many more types. I think there maybe like one or two types have been added.
Oh, okay.
Discord, email, whatever. Feel free to.
Oh yeah, we don't know.
We don't know. We are routinely wrong about Pokemon, and just because I'm playing one now does not mean that I know about it any more than I did before. But yeah, I'm just having a fun time with this game.
That's fun. Would you recommend like should I go back and play Pokemon Red or Pokemon Blue? I don't know how I would do it now.
Sure.
I guess I'd try. Yeah, I have no idea how I would do it now.
Yeah, if you didn't buy it on 3DS, I mean, I have theories about something that we'll talk about later in the episode. But yeah, just like track down a cart and play on a Game Boy. Track down a Game Boy.
Yeah, or a Game Boy Advance.
Or a Game Boy Advance. Yeah. Well, because there's the remakes of Red and Blue, which are Fire Red and Leaf Green. So I guess it's a remake of Green technically. If you were interested in playing that, it's the same basic experience.
Yeah. I mean, I guess again, I played Let's Go and I enjoyed that experience. I actually really liked having the go catch mechanic.
Yeah, sure.
Instead of battles. So maybe I should just feel like I've already accomplished it. Maybe I'll go with that.
Maybe you already accomplished it. Right. And see, look, just because we're making ourselves play Echo the Dolphin doesn't mean I can't also play a game that from a long time ago that turns out I like.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? I can be doing something good too.
Yeah, you can.
The show isn't just you and me doing something bad.
Well, I didn't have a ton of time to actually game this week, and I've got to tell you, I am having a hard time wanting to play Echoes of Wisdom, and I don't really know what's up with that, but I just haven't felt driven to get back into it. but I really didn't have time very much this past week. But what I did have time for is I read all of Jason Schreier's new book, Play Nice, The Rise, Fall, and Future of Blizzard as Entertainment, which I really enjoyed. I have not played.
How much book space does he commit to the Lost Vikings?
Not very much, but they do get a call out.
I'm disappointed.
Because they do talk a little bit about the development of the Lost Vikings, and because it was so early, I didn't realize this either. Like so early in Blizzard's life. I don't have that much affinity for Blizzard games or anything like that, but it was just a really there was a lot of history and it's really well written. Like I enjoyed it a lot. I did skim over stuff. Like there's a lot of chapter introductions that are like Mark Mitchell grew up playing video games.
We're not talking about Lost here.
And so I was like, do you know what? I'm just gonna skim this.
Sure, just like biographical kind of stuff.
Yeah, where it's just like, okay,
kind of.
But yeah, it was very interesting. It ends like it goes through the Activision Blizzard acquisition by Microsoft and kind of ends at the beginning of this year when there were like a lot of layoffs that Microsoft and Blizzard was affected and that sort of thing. But I kind of like breezed through it. I thought it was a little bit of page turner. Like I liked it. I have enjoyed his other books, but I really enjoyed this one.
Was it just because you had enjoyed his previous books? Like you mentioned that like Blizzard isn't necessarily your publisher. Those games aren't like your games. But was that just it, that like you knew you liked Schreier's writing? And
I think part of it also was just because it feels like there's been so much that has happened to Blizzard in the past 5 or so years, like all of the stuff with leadership getting shaken up because of bad behavior,
right?
And then the acquisition by Microsoft, and I wanted to learn more about what the internal workings of it were like during when it was run by Activision, you know what I mean? And like those tensions and all of that stuff was really interesting.
What's funny about like those first 2 points that you made about like what's happened to the company in the last like decade of like changes in leadership due to like bad behavior and then being acquired by someone just makes it like the modern corporate fairy tale.
Totally.
That like those are like the conditions of business in the 21st century, and maybe just always of business, but that's just what a representative slice of like what that is. Is there like an individual like Blizzard game that like you do respond to or like that you do like? If you had to pick one that was like a franchise that you did sort of care about. You're squinting right now. Well, maybe I'm asking
just because
you an
like
I
in high school played quite a bit of StarCraft, but was never like into. I would just get destroyed online,
right?
But I liked playing StarCraft and Diablo 2. I spent quite a bit of time playing Diablo 2. But
did we play a little Diablo 3 together?
We did, because I bought the Switch version and never like played through the campaign or anything, but we did mess around with it when it came out. But no, otherwise not really, but it has such a storied place in like video game history and has had such a like, I mean, what Blizzard is today is very different what Blizzard was in 2003.
Yeah.
And so just hearing about the development of something like World of Warcraft and all of that, I found it really interesting.
That's so fascinating because like did you mess around with Overwatch at all?
No.
Because I had like a brief Overwatch period that was maybe, like a month. And then growing up, I played a lot of Warcraft. So you and I have a lot of the like bases covered, except for the biggest ones, which is say World of Warcraft and like Hearthstone.
Right.
Like those are the two. I played Hearthstone for like a week because my buddy John wanted me to like play with him. And that was fun. But I was like, oh yeah, no, this is. I have the like card game addictive personality type that like if I start playing this, it's over for me. Yeah, it's just interesting that we have like some of the Blizzard things between us.
Yeah. No. Yes, there was a time where it was like, oh, wouldn't it be? We should just get Magic starter decks, and play a match. I haven't played a match for years. And you were like, no, I can't do that. That's a bad road for me.
It's a bad road for me. It's when I played Magic, it was the first thing I thought about in the morning and the last thing I thought about before going to sleep. I cannot play Magic just a little bit. And I've been around multiple friend groups as an adult where people have had that same musing mark of like, we should get decks. And I'm like, no, like, go ahead, do whatever makes you happy. I will not be with you on this road.
Yeah, I think it's good that you know yourself well enough to just be like, that is not a road I can go down
It's
anymore.
a door that's closed to me, and that's fine. All right, Mark. So that's what we've been playing and or reading this week. Let's get into the new releases and what we might be playing next week.
Today, Tuesday, October 15th, Neva is released.
Yeah, that's that stylish looking platformer that we saw in probably the Indie World Showcase. That was also part of the partner showcase from the end of
August.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is from the same developers as Gris, which I haven't played, but is also a well-regarded, stylish platformer. And Neva's getting very good reviews.
Yes.
So this wasn't really on my radar, but maybe, I don't know. Did you play Gris? Have you played?
No, I didn't play it at all. But this thing looks more up my alley, kind of. Anyway, just like a moody, cool looking platformer. But yeah, so this is definitely on my radar now.
Yeah, this on like I think I've watch listed it.
Ooh yeah.
Taking that bold step.
How deep is that list for you now,
It's
Mark?
pretty deep, but I get emails from Nintendo all the time being like, "Hey,
hey, deadbeat."
yeah, like what coffee talk? Is that what that's called?
Yeah. With Linda Richmond.
A
30-year-old reference right there.
Is that what it's called though? That like
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, like, oh, coffee talk's on sale, and has it motivated me to buy it? Not yet, but I do like getting those reminders that it's on my watch list. And then also that old stalwart Just Dance 2025 edition is releasing today as well.
Of course.
On Thursday, October 17th, Super Mario Party Jamboree is released.
Can you believe it's already here?
No, it feels the year has just flown by.
The year has just flown by. Also, like, since Zelda came out so late in the month, I feel like we're still in Zelda release window right now. And I'm like, slow down. I thought we were pacing these things out a month between releases, and this is only like 3 weeks? Come on.
Does it feel like Super Mario Party Jamboree has a different energy around it than previous Mario Party games, as in like more positive energy? I feel like the previews were really positive.
Yeah, it does feel like there's some like pre-release buzz around it. It's hard to say how much of that will be like reflected in the final product. Because I do feel like there is a Mario Party fandom that engages with these games on a level I can't conceive, and therefore has opinions about things that I couldn't imagine having opinions about, and that those are probably not the same kinds of things that would make or break a Mario Party game for me. But yeah, all of which is to say, like, it does seem like there is something crackling around the release of Jamboree.
Yeah, I feel like the headlines for the previews, because that's all I've read,
right,
are,
without clicking on the article,
the general takeaway from these headlines was that it fixes a lot of the, like, annoying things about previous Mario Party games. And the Mario Party games, generally speaking, as a series, but on Switch, have sold insanely well.
Yes.
And, like, it seems like Super Mario Party Jamboree could realistically be Nintendo's best-selling game of this year.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. So, had you purchased either of the two on Switch? I bought the original Super Mario Party. I did not pick up Superstars, Mario Party Superstars. I'm going to imagine that's the name of that game. Because I know myself, and like, I'm just not that much of a Mario Party guy. Obviously, I have to buy this one, but I'm sort of excited to like be in a scenario where we could play this game with like friends or something. I think it could be a good time. Mark, are you going to be picking up Super Mario Party Jamboree?
I don't think so, but I would absolutely want to play it
Right.
with you, because that's how the original Super Mario Party on Switch, we played a couple of games together.
Yes.
And I think this one will probably be fun as well.
It feels ridiculous to point this out, but like, these games are only fun when you're playing with other people. And so like, if you can't envision a time where you're like getting people over to play the game together, I would just absolutely skip it, you know. But like, yeah, if you, it would be fun to just get a solid like foursome together and play this game
for sure. And then also on Thursday, the Joy-Con charging stand (parentheses two-way) is released, and this is Nintendo's first official like Joy-Con charging stand.
So it's the first one that they're releasing. They have officially licensed a couple others.
Yeah, that's right.
Which
Hori or whatever, you know.
Yes. It's a borderline distinction without a difference, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But this one is presumably like Nintendo designed, and I think it was announced in like July or something.
Yeah, that feels right.
And now it is here.
So first question here. This is a product that Nintendo is putting out. Do I have to buy one of these?
Oh, that is a good question. You know, throughout the year, I've been pretty loose, and I've given you permission to do whatever you feel.
Yeah.
But in this case, actually, yeah, I do think you have to buy it.
Well,
I don't think there's any getting around it.
Yeah, that's fair. Because it is a new product from Nintendo. It does feel like I probably do have to buy it. I was looking into if they were available to like pre-order. And like Best Buy has a product page, but no pre-order option. It just says coming soon.
Yeah.
It is perhaps too boring of a product to offer pre-orders on. But you know, I was thinking about like I don't have a solution for how to charge the NES and Joy-Con and Famicom controllers, especially when I always also want to be charging a set of Joy-Con. So maybe this isn't the dumbest thing in the world. There are cheaper solutions that charge more Joy-Con that aren't the official Nintendo ones. But if I have to buy it, I have to buy it.
How much is it? I didn't look it up.
$30, I believe.
Oh, okay. So
$29.99. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have like a charger either. But for something like, and it hasn't been a problem, but for something like, people are going to come over and play Super Mario Party Jamboree, having a charging solution would be nice.
Yeah, and just like having a place where Joy-Con are constantly charging instead of like, oh yeah, I have to make a plan to, while I'm at work today, charge a set of Joy-Con.
But again, like this is like you said, this is a solved problem. Like,
yes, right.
There have been solutions around for this for a while, but you know, and I think maybe even we even talked about why is Nintendo releasing their own solution now,
right?
And
possible. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say possible that the next Switch will have different sized or different like Joy-Con that connect to the Switch physically in a different way, and therefore you can't just slide your old Joy-Cons onto a Switch to charge them, even though they will technically be compatible with the machine, that you could use them to play Super Mario Party Jamboree on Switch 2, but they won't be able to charge that way.
Right, and then they want to have this official one because when the Switch 2 releases, then who knows, a third party, you know, if like Hori is going to keep making the Switch ones, they want to have
for the new. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was my thought as well.
Yep.
And then on Friday, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutants Unleashed is released.
Surprisingly little out there about this game. So it's based on the Mutant Mayhem, like the most recent movie, and also like the animated series. It's those turtles, and it's like a third person like action adventure looking game. The very little bit that we've had, like the very little video that we've had of it for a while now, seems cool, but it's definitely not a game that feels like it's been making the like tour of like video game outlets, which of course just raises questions. I really only know about this stuff because I'm in like a Ninja Turtle subreddit and stuff like that. I'm not hearing about it from video game places, just from Turtles places.
But this is not Because wasn't there also fairly recently like a mobile game that was ported to
That's
Switch?
Splintered Fate. That's the one that's like sort of Hades-like. It's
okay.
a roguelike, which I have played a little bit of. I don't love it, but it's fun and interesting. But yeah, so this is like a new one and was sort of like pitched as a like AAA action Turtles game,
Oh, interesting that there's not really anything out there for it then.
which makes me worry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's supposed to come out on Friday.
And I imagine that it will.
Well, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Why would it not?
I have faith. I don't doubt it any other week. So
yeah. So why introduce
why doubt it
now?
this week? You're right. You're right.
And also, Friday's just a couple days away. Like, all right, Mark. Let's close out the new releases. Which brings us to a regular segment on our show, and it's time for 433. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, wherein a performer or group of performers didn't play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of this show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo. So, for the duration of one performance, 433, Mark and I'll talk about something not all Nintendo related, thus fulfilling the contract of the piece. Mark, we are talking about our indulgent... Oh, God. That's a loud recording of 433. Our indulgent food cravings. When we want to splurge, when we want to eat irresponsibly, what do we go for?
Yeah.
This is sort of a you pitch. Did you have something in mind as to like what you go for?
I generally like have the palate of a 12-year-old.
Sure.
So I have to fight against that to eat responsibly. But some days that inner 12-year-old breaks through. And for me, it's McDonald's Chicken McNuggets.
Okay.
I love McDonald's Chicken McNuggets.
Specifically McDonald's Chicken McNuggets.
Yeah. I mean, I like fried chicken in general.
Sure.
Give me a good chicken strip. But, yeah. Like, the problem is that they never, once I get them and eat them, it's never, like, as good as I hoped it would be. It's never, like, satisfying.
Right, yes. What's your sauce of choice there?
Just barbecue.
Just barbecue, okay. When I was a kid, I always just like to get the honey packets and just dip the nuggets in honey directly, which is just adding sweetness. It's insane.
I mean, I get it. I get it.
Delicious. But obviously, that's not something that I eat anymore.
Yes. So as a vegetarian, what is your like dirty craving?
I mean, I've got a big dumb sweet tooth, right? So like something that I will do sometimes is buy a box of Oreos, eat half of them, and then throw away the rest of them in shame. That's something that will happen. And I'm not proud of it.
That's good. That's good.
And always the single stuff. I went through a phase in my life where I was like, double stuff Oreos. I like this double stuff. It always freaked me out a little bit that it's stuff is spelled S-T-U-F. They can't even commit to the fact that what's in there is even stuff.
It's like they're not legally allowed.
They're not allowed to call it stuff.
Stuff.
Right.
Technically, this isn't a substance.
Right. The FDA got on them and were like, you can't call this stuff. Like, fine, we made up a word. S-T-U-F. So I definitely went through a phase where like I thought that that's what I liked was the double. But no, the ratio between cookie and cream in a regular Oreo is about as good as it could be. I always want to see them on the Great British Baking Show issue the technical challenge of make one Oreo.
Oh my gosh, they totally should. What's the name of the like Oreo likes that
Hydrox?
are Hydrox? Yeah.
No, get that out of here too. It's the original Oreo. Like when I get that sweet tooth fixation like that, it just needs to be that.
I know an original Oreo it's the perfect cookie.
Yeah.
It's
really
so
is.
Delicious.
And also, I don't want like the sleeve of like 6 Oreos. Like it needs to be a full box so I can waste half of it.
I have a real sweet tooth for candy.
Right.
But I have pretty good self-control when it comes to candy. Like I will buy a box of Sour Patch Kids. I love Sour Patch Kids at the movies, but then eat like 4 of them.
That's incredible.
So that is fine. Like I have control there, but when it comes to like food that is bad for me, I am not very good at controlling. Where I'm just like, oh, I have like this like craving for it. Nah, I'm just gonna get it.
Right.
And because once I'm in that headspace, it's really hard for me to be like, but I'll eat a salad instead.
Yeah, sure. I feel like you've got good event control. Like the number of times that I've been out to a movie with you, or like movies where there are like a dine-in option, and everyone's like, yeah, what the heck? I'll get a beer, or I'll get a shake, or a pretzel, or whatever. You are frequently like, nothing for me. And it feels like zen to me going to Alamo Drafthouse with you, and you'll show up and be like, I'll have a glass of water.
Well, what I try to do is be like, okay, I really want chicken nuggets. Like I'm craving chicken nuggets. Okay, I'm just going to get 4. Right? And then be like, okay, that will satisfy the craving.
Right.
I've had it, but then it's not all I'm eating. Like it's not the only thing.
Yes.
I'm just going to have a little bit. Now,
that's
does it
hard
work
to manage
all the time? It is hard to
during Into the Spider-Verse or whatever.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
But oof. I could go for some chicken nuggets right now. Not gonna lie.
Well, let's go get some chicken nuggets after this. We were accompanied today by students at the Royal Center School of Speech and Drama, as conducted by Paul Barker. Mark, let's get into the news.
Last Wednesday, Nintendo dropped a trailer for a surprise new product, Nintendo Sound Clock Alarmo.
Some talk in the Discord early on about no one is ever going to call this thing Nintendo Sound Clock Alarmo. You and I have multiple times on this episode simply called it Alarmo, so let's address it now. Are we going to be referring to this thing by its full Christian name, Nintendo Sound Clock Alarmo, or just Alarmo?
For some reason, there's something about it that I just want to call it Alarmo.
I also just want to cut to the chase. It feels like a Labo. It feels like an Amiibo. Like Alarmo is just the thing.
What I am excited about with the naming is that it leaves room for there to be other Nintendo Sound Clock products that are not Alarmo.
This is a great point. Yes. Also possibly a Nintendo smell clock.
Yeah, the other Nintendo Feel Clock.
Yes.
Nintendo C Clock.
I love it.
Although I guess technically Alarmo is probably the Nintendo C Clock.
Yes, that's right. Nintendo Vision Clock.
Nintendo Vision Clock, yes. But yeah, the Nintendo Sound Clock Alarmo. What is this thing? So it is an alarm clock that plugs into the wall, sits next to your bed, and it has a motion sensor in there.
No power brick, by the way. You have to supply your own or plug directly into a USB
outlet thing?
No, I think USB. I think a regular one.
Really?
I don't know.
That seems so... I mean, it could absolutely be true. But we don't have ours
don't have ours yet.
This is the problem.
We both pre-ordered these things.
Mine's supposed to come tomorrow on Wednesday.
Mine's supposed to arrive on Wednesday as well, yeah.
And so we don't know. But it plugs into the wall, and it has like a dial and button on top. It's like one and the same.
Right, and then 2 other buttons.
And then it has a screen that shows the time and also has like little animations on it.
Yes.
At the top is a motion sensor, and the motion sensor is used in the wake up process. So it is kind of like sensing your motion at night, and then the alarm goes off, and I guess you can use gestures or something to snooze it, but then it can also tell when you are like actually up and out of bed.
Right. And again, we don't actually have these things yet, so we can't tell you what the experience of using it is totally like. But the idea is that it senses you tossing and turning, trying to wake up in the morning, playing more little sound effects, and like the music gets a little bit more intense to try to like wake you up. And this is all Nintendo music. And then when you get out of bed, when it senses no further like presence of you in the bed, then the alarm turns off without you having to engage with it.
Yes. It's also funny because if you get up out of bed and the alarm turns off and then you get back into bed, the alarm is going to start up again.
Oh, is it really?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
that's part of the FAQ.
That's part of the design there.
Exactly.
So that's it's all very interesting. Some of the like caveats from like the FAQ is like, can you use this if you sleep in a bed with another person or in a bed with pets? And they're like, no.
I mean, you can use
You
it
can.
but just as a traditional alarm clock,
Right.
where you would hit the button, instead of you being able to use the motion sensing stuff.
Right.
And well, before we get into that sort of stuff, yeah, like you mentioned, there's 5 games that it currently has themes from. So Super Mario Odyssey, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Splatoon 3, Pikmin 4, and Ring Fit Adventures. And then from those 5 games, there's 35 different scenes that you can use. And so when you're waking up, like if you're on Mario, as you start tossing and turning, in addition to the music, it's also playing like coin noises, or the one that you show for Splatoon 3 is it's like the splatting sound effect, which is like a machine gun going off.
That's a weirdly violent like set of sounds.
Yeah, pretty funny. Bowser, it seems like, shows up in some of them. And then they also said that if you connect it with your Nintendo account, that there will be updates down the line. Like I think Animal Crossing New Horizons and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe were 2 that they specifically called out. There's some other features to it. So records, so you can see how much you move around in your sleep, because it's not a camera, it's like a IR sensor, but it keeps track of that.
And this is the device that Connor and I were talking about on the news episode that he hosted with me a couple weeks ago, that Nintendo had filed a new patent with the FCC about this motion sensing or like presence sensing device, which is expressly not a camera.
Yes, that's right. An hourly chime you can turn on that's themed to the game title that you chose. You have the steady or gentle modes for your morning alarm. Steady mode, the alarm will like gradually get more intense the longer you stay in bed. Gentle mode offers a more consistent intensity level, is what they call it. And then button mode, like we talked about, where it's just a traditional alarm clock. And then finally, sleepy sounds to wind down with like soothing music and sounds at your set bedtime.
So now that's interesting, because it means that there is some sort of like borderline white noise music component to it, which actually does sound like a feature that I would engage with. I don't know. I want to get to this question too, but like, I don't really wake up to an alarm in my adult life. So like, even if I was sleeping in a bed alone, and like the novelty of the wake up alarm, like the touchless alarm, was something that I could engage with, I just don't really use that, use an alarm to wake up. But this, like, on the other end of it, the like going to bed, like sleep time ritual, that's kind of appealing to me. What is what is your wake up routine like?
I have an alarm. I use an alarm to get up in the morning. And
do you and your husband get up at different times, or at about the same time?
Usually about the same time, but that's more just like work related than it is like I can definitely sleep longer if I don't need to get up at the same time he gets up. And yeah, I think, well, like we both have partners, so I don't know, like I had a friend text me and kind of ironically say like, oh, like you should get this. And I responded, I already did. Like I bought this immediately. And they were like, oh, really? And for me, the reason I bought it is not because I ever intend to use it. Maybe I'll plug it in somewhere and just like for the visuals of it all.
I think just for it to be a clock is like a compelling clock, right? That like if you have like I imagine I will be bringing mine to work, just as like another place that I can see the time.
Yeah. But the
and have a hilarious, chime from Ring Fit Adventure or something every hour.
But as like I don't know, this is a very interesting product to me because I don't really know who it's for. It feels like Ring Fit Adventure a little bit, where I saw Ring Fit Adventure and I was like, I don't really get this. And then the use case for it became super apparent and it sold incredibly well. And so even though I'm looking at Alarmo and I wanted to pick it up because I love when Nintendo does weird stuff. Weird Nintendo is my favorite Nintendo. And of course I'm going to buy an alarm clock that they put out.
Of course.
And because that,
by the way, these things are $99.99.
Right. It's not cheap.
And only available to Nintendo Switch Online subscribers
right now.
Present.
Yeah.
Right. Or at the store in New York.
Which I think sold out pretty quickly. Yeah. Maybe it's been restocked. But in fact, I think if you buy it if you're a Nintendo Switch Online subscriber right now, new ones aren't shipping out until November.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so I like the novelty of this, the fact that Nintendo created it. I love it. I love when they do stuff like this. Of course, I'm going to buy it because in 5 years, when somebody's like, remember when Nintendo made an alarm clock? I want to be able to say yes, and I bought it.
And here it is. Yeah.
But like otherwise, I would not buy this thing because it doesn't fit my needs or my life at all.
Yes. I mean, and that's like exactly how I feel about it, where I'm like, I don't. There are a couple things where, I mean, obviously, sleep in bed with a partner. Sarah's kind of a light sleeper. I think if I had an alarm, it would ruin her night's sleep. And also, I don't need an alarm. So, like, there are many ways in which the Alarmo does not jive with my lifestyle at all. But the way that it does is that it is a weird Nintendo thing that, like, yeah, I of course I need that.
And I'm also willing, just like Ring Fit Adventure, I'm willing to be wrong.
Right.
Like maybe maybe it turns out that Alarmo is exactly what I needed in my life or something. And that it'll fix my bedtime routine, like all that kind of stuff. But I honestly don't even know if I'm going to plug it in. Like, I don't even know if I'm going to...
Mark, come on, plug it in.
Maybe I'll take it out of the box and, like, try it out or something. But this is, for me, an example of, like, I'm glad Nintendo is doing something like this. That it's not video games. It's, it seems to be maybe an outgrowth of what they initially started during the Wii era with like the quality of life stuff.
Yep.
I like when Nintendo reminds us we're not a video game company. We're like a toy company that makes video games.
Which is something we're going to be talking about more on Thursday. But yeah, is like always, it's the same thing that like makes me worried that like the next Switch is just going to be a more powerful version of the Switch. And also the thing that makes me not believe that. Where it's just like, no, there's got to be something else to it, because Nintendo doesn't just do the thing you think they're going to do, because they're not part of this like video game console manufacturer machine. They're something else, and they sure look like it, and they do make video games, so like everyone can be forgiven for making the assumption that they would want to make a Switch too. And Alarmo is, like evidence of like, here is Nintendo doing their own thing.
And it's just also really interesting to think about like how long this has been percolating, because they released a Ask the Developer interview online. Right. And in it, they talk about like, we were working on this during the pandemic. So this has been in the works for a long time. There was a Verge article that somebody dug up from 2014 discussing a non-wearable sleep tracking device that like Iwata talked about, back in 2014. So, it's like how, and that was, ago. And that was, how many years after they talked about quality of life products and showed off like the heartbeat tracker that would plug into the port on the bottom of a Wiimote, back in like at E3, I don't know what it was, 2008, 2010 or something.
Yeah, it was the same E3 where Metroid Other M was announced.
So maybe that was 2010 then.
Yeah.
And so like, how many iterations has something like this gone through that for Alarmo to finally bubble up from, and what other products that Nintendo was working on never made it to this point.
Right. Well, and also like I feel like Alarmo is one of these things that we're going to see in as like a reward or Easter egg in Smash Brothers and WarioWare forever from here on out, right? And like maybe there'll be an iteration on this. Maybe they will have learned something about like the motion sensing technology that they will apply to a future thing. It's all like Nintendo exists on this like continuum throughout time, and just because like we can't perceive the path as we're on it, doesn't mean that it's not a crucial stop on the path.
It was very interesting to read the interview and talk about they had like systems engineers, like like system software designers. They had game software engineers, and then they had the hardware people, and they talked about how difficult it was collaborating on something like this because they'd never had to before.
Right.
And that also makes you think about like how Nintendo is unique. Like how much of this project, yes, the Alarmo is a product that they can sell, but also what benefits did they get from having those teams collaborate together in a new way, and the challenge of doing something like that.
And also like there's a fun like bit of humility here that like they did approach it and again from these interviews, originally approach it from like how to gamify sleep, and then being like, that doesn't make any sense. That is not something that aids in sleeping. And so like the game parts have all been removed.
Yes, and also that they talk about how like it wasn't initially, game music wasn't the default. It wasn't like this was going to be Nintendo character themed from the beginning. They talked about different ideas, and then when it was like sound based, it made sense to have that synergy. But yeah, it is a fun, surprising thing. I never in a million years would have guessed that Nintendo was about to release an alarm clock.
Right. And that they were going to announce it as the Nintendo fandom online was like whipping itself up into a frenzy of like, when are they going to announce the Switch 2? Is also like, it's a funny little wrinkle. I don't think it's intentional trolling on Nintendo's part. I think that the online Nintendo community is too online and has too many specific expectations of a company that you can have no expectations from. And it's just a funny little bit of coincidence. Mark, I was thinking about this today and previously. The Switch, the next Switch 2, Super Switch, Switch Advance, Switch Deluxe. Is there an example of Nintendo adding words onto an existing product and that product sells better? Like from the Nintendo Entertainment System to the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, there's a sales decline. From the Game Boy to the Game Boy Advance, sales decline. DS to 3DS, sales decline. Wii to Wii U, sales decline.
No, there isn't.
So are they going to is the next Switch going to be a Switch something, or is it going to have a completely different name?
Well, I guess my counter argument to that would only be that, from the Super Nintendo to the Nintendo 64, that was also a decline, and from the Nintendo 64 to the GameCube was also a decline.
It's almost all declines.
Yeah, so even doing a fresh new name does not guarantee success either.
Right. I mean, other than like a lot of the pillars have been like the first crack at the pillar has been successful. NES, Game Boy, DS, Switch, and I guess like you could maybe consider that like a separate like pillar, a separate approach. But yeah, just like that their hardware sequels don't seem to fare all that well.
And I think the argument that I'm about to give for keeping Switch in the name is the same argument that doomed the Wii U to having Wii in its name, which is that you have so much cultural cash with the name Nintendo Switch. I do think, however, that Nintendo and the Switch is in a very different place in the public's headspace than the Wii ever was.
And really than any previous Nintendo hardware was, save maybe the Game Boy.
So, because we don't know what the next hardware is, depending on, because I agree with you that I will be really surprised if it is, maybe not really surprised, but it will be surprising to me if it's just a more powerful Switch.
Yeah.
With like magnets to connect the Joy-Con. I expect there to be something else, and maybe that something else is so different that they do decide to name it, like go with a completely new naming convention. But my expectation is that Switch will be in the name.
Can I pitch you a new name?
Please.
Okay, so
Does it end with O?
It does not, which means it's already wrong. The Nintendo Game-O is out. So for the reasons that we're discussing here, I think if they're adding something to it, it's going to be something incredibly short. Much like along the lines of from the Wii to the Wii U, which I know is not like a good example of a product that sold well. But I think to communicate that and to communicate an increase in processing power and to lean into like a phrase that already exists and isn't like some weirdo out of the way thing, the switch up.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's just where my brain has been the last couple days. That's I'm updating my guess from at the beginning of this year, from Switch Deluxe to Switch Up.
Well, one of the rumors on the Switch 2 is that there's some sort of connector at the top.
There we go.
That is used for accessories, and that like Switch Up makes sense for that, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, now you're going to switch it up.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I just like
that's interesting.
And like there is a world where they call it Switch 2. I don't think we live in that world. And I also don't think that just like I don't think they're ever going to call something like a pro console or whatever. And like I don't think they really want to revisit the super or advance tags as much as like that feels fun and neat and nice. So I'm just planting my flag here. Switch up.
I like it.
All right, great.
Yeah, I like it. Your point about Game Boy Advance is 100% true. But do you think that I don't really know what the trajectory of the Game Boy Advance sales were, but but it was cut so short. It didn't have any chance to. Do you think that I don't think it would have sold as well as the Game Boy because that had a decade of sales,
right?
And the Pokemon behind it. But yeah, I do wonder what the
decade
Game Boy
of
Advance
sales
could have done.
and then Pokemon.
Right.
It's crazy stuff.
So I do wonder what the Game Boy Advance could have done.
Yeah,
if
totally.
If the Nintendo DS didn't come out. The Alarmo though.
Yes.
Speaking of names, it is funny that this is sort of like a naming convention. You have Amiibo.
Yep.
You have Labo.
Yes.
You have Alarmo.
That's the end of the list, but yeah, we do have all of those.
And you briefly mentioned it before, but the way you can get one right now if you're in North America, if you're a subscriber of Nintendo Switch Online in the US or Canada, you can purchase it from the My Nintendo store.
Yes.
And it was available at the Nintendo New York store. Sold out at some point. Will maybe be restocked.
This is all
full
like
availability in 2025.
There we go.
Early
yes.
2025.
Right. That we are currently in like the early access phase where only Nintendo Switch Online subscribers will have access to it. Interesting to see Nintendo gating a purchase behind, which I guess they've done before with controllers, Nintendo Switch Online subscriptions. We're about to talk about a second thing that they are doing that way. Makes me wonder if there's any connection between that and how they're going to roll out pre-orders of the next Switch.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. Do you think it does make me wonder what the impetus for doing it this way was.
Yep.
Possibly they had like a smaller batch available right now with a fuller batch coming in 2025, and why not award Nintendo Switch Online subscribers?
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't think it'll be a large mover of Nintendo Switch Online subscribers, but maybe you get a few who want to check out Alarmo.
I guess that feels like a scenario that I don't like. I almost don't believe.
But I also wonder if it is to prevent leaks.
Sure.
If that information isn't going out to retailers.
Yeah, that is a great point. Yes.
Later.
But even still, like the Nintendo Store can sell you something even if you're not a Nintendo Switch Online subscriber.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But also, it seems like they are maybe trying to drive more sales directly through
it definitely
Nintendo.com.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Maybe it's like an amalgamation of all of that. But available to everybody in early 2025.
There we go.
Anything else you want to say about Alarmo before we move on?
I don't think so. I think we've addressed the pros and the cons. This feels like obviously you and I buy a lot of Nintendo stuff, and occasionally we try to make like recommendations about stuff, and I have no concept as to whether this is a product that is worth anyone's time or money. But I know I'm excited about it.
I'm excited to own it.
There you go.
Yeah. Also on Wednesday, Nintendo announced a mysterious Nintendo Switch Online playtest program.
Ooh.
So open to Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack subscribers in Japan, the USA, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Italy, or Spain. It's a limited spaces. There were 10,000 spots, up to 10,000. We don't actually know how many they filled.
Mm-hmm.
And applications opened last Thursday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time.
And closed at 8 a.m. Pacific time.
Yes, so I was up like 10 minutes early, logged in. I was refreshing the browser, and then at 7:59, I started refreshing. As soon as it hit 8 o'clock, it lagged for me, and then by the time that it loaded, like 10 seconds later, the message was, "It's full."
So that's a pretty common refrain. It seems like a lot of people who tried to sign up for this thing did not get in. Mark, I did get in.
Amazing.
So I have been accepted for whatever this thing is. And I think it is just notable here that to mention that we don't know what this thing is.
No, all they said is that, quote, "We will perform a test called Nintendo Switch Online Playtest Program related to a new feature for the Nintendo Switch Online service offered for the Nintendo Switch system."
Right. So that's it. And in the past they've done like online playtests for like Nintendo Switch Sports and Splatoon and all this kind of stuff. But in those cases, first of all, they've been like just available to everyone to do, and they've been very straightforward ahead of time about what it is that they're testing. So there's some degree of secrecy here, right, where they are not telling people what it is that you're signing up for. They've recommended that you have a wired internet connection, are playing mostly in TV mode when you're participating with this thing, and there's a certain amount of memory that they require.
It's like 2 gigabytes.
It's like 2 gigs,
like
yeah. That you have available on your Switch for this playtest program.
Yeah, so I think on the 20th, they will make the thing available for you to download.
Yes.
And then the playtest will run between October 23rd and November 5th. But that's all we know.
That's all we know.
Yeah.
So let the speculation begin. Because like what, and I don't know if we mentioned this, but this is only available to people who are Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack subscribers. So that's the $50 a year thing where you also have access to the Nintendo 64, Game Boy Advance, and Sega Genesis libraries.
And the DLC stuff that they offer.
And the DLC stuff. So like all of that sort of feels like it's in play. Other possible like classic libraries may be in play as well. Mark, any thoughts on what this is or could be?
So I think that the reason that they are doing plus expansion pack subscribers is just to whittle down the field a little bit, and I honestly think it's to like kind of reward the people who are like your biggest fans,
me,
or at least the ones that are spending the most money on Nintendo Switch Online. Because if you're
did you get the email today congratulating you on the 3-year anniversary of the
yes.
Switch Online plus expansion pack? Yes.
Yes. I did get that email.
3 years, $150.
But I've seen some speculation that like maybe if the Nintendo Switch or the next Nintendo Switch, the Switch 2 has cross-play or something like that is what they want to test. And so you will be playing on a Switch, but everybody at Nintendo headquarters will be playing on a Switch too.
Sure.
And that way they'll be able to test like cross compatibility.
So what am I downloading them? And then am I downloading like a game that we'll be playing against them?
That's a great question.
That has like the crossplay. It's not a huge amount of data that they're having you set aside, but it's not nothing, right?
Right.
There's also been some speculation that it's like game streaming, but that also wouldn't be that big of a download, right? And also like you can Nintendo hasn't done any first party like game streaming, but like obviously Capcom and Square Enix and a lot of other companies have. So like that doesn't feel like something that they would really need to test. It almost feels like it has to be something a little bit more like foundational, or is this part of like a return of a Miiverse style Nintendo social network thing, or like a unified achievement / trophy system, right? Like, or a combination of those two things. Like, it seems like there has to be something bigger on like a more umbrella level than just playing individual games.
I think that may be true, but I don't think I don't think you're going to know it, because I think that
as I'm playing with it, you mean?
yes, because I think even though Nintendo asks people not to share what is going to happen as part of the test, they have to know that people are going to talk about it, that it's going to end up online.
Right.
And for that reason,
Well,
I don't think they're going to reveal anything that is worth sharing. So maybe
that's interesting.
Maybe, yes, somehow or another. My guess is that you're going to download like a slice of a existing game or something to that effect.
Oh, interesting.
But whatever it is that you're actually testing, you won't have any idea. To you, it's just going to be like a game. Maybe it's just Splatoon 3,
right.
like a very specific splice of Splatoon 3.
No, what,
and then Nintendo will be using that, whatever they're actually testing. Like, I don't think you're going to know.
Okay, then, and that's a compelling theory. The thing that like I bump against there is like it feels like a Splatoon player is a specific kind of player, and I guess if you're sorting for NSO plus expansion pack subscribers, that you're likely getting those players. But like to funnel people into like specific game experiences feels like you may be wasting some of the people who signed up and got through to it.
But I think it's a technical test.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a mechanic test.
But even beyond that,
and so
even like for me to test out like the technical, if it's a Splatoon thing, I'm going to engage with it less. They're going to get less data from me doing that because I'm not crazy about Splatoon.
Yeah, but anything they do is going to do that, right?
Yes, right.
Like, so between the 10,000 people that they got to sign up,
right.
I think they feel confident that they'll at least get what they need. And maybe there'll be another one of these in the future, right?
Right.
That is more specific. I mean, we don't really know the criteria for which people were chosen.
Right.
Like, there were some people, like, I had the experience, I didn't even get to the application page, but there were some people who got to the application page, filled out the application, and were told you weren't accepted.
Right.
And people who replied, like seconds later were. There was some speculation that it had to do with like family accounts and something, like, I don't know if that has any, if that there's any truth to that. So so maybe they're looking for something really specific. Maybe, but I just have a really hard time believing that they're going to reveal anything exciting because they know that it's going to leak.
Right. Well, and that is so interesting because like the you mentioned that like it in the agreement that you agree to actually participate in this thing, they say like please don't share this, or they say like please don't talk about it with other people, and please don't share your code, blah 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 blah. But it's all please, right? It's none of it is like by accepting this, you are making a agreement to not blah, 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 blah. It's all very gentle in its language, which I think does sort of imply that they're going to be hiding it in ways that you won't even know what you're testing really. But so, yeah, I don't know. Like I'm also, my heart is open to the idea that like between now and the 20th, when this thing is downloadable onto our Switches, that they will have some sort of like direct or presentation to be like, here's the thing that we're going to be rolling out. You'll see it for real on the Switch 2. 10,000 lucky fans have the ability to give it a test drive right now, and you'll be hearing their reactions for sure. And we're shoring up the whatever to make sure it all works. Like my heart's open to that too.
Yeah, totally. But really what I think it's going to be is like
really boring.
I don't think it's going to be boring. I think it's going to be slices of games.
Yeah.
And then whatever they're testing, you're just playing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, or you're just playing something else.
Or it's the return of Satellaview.
It's the return of that would be pretty amazing.
And they're working out a way to like live stream experiences for people to like play along with. There are so many like things that Nintendo, especially Nintendo Online, just doesn't do now and doesn't do well. Where like voice chat or like having like a persistent room to play with multiplayer with your friends and like hop between games or like anything like that. That like that those could be the kind of features that they're like.
Yeah, that's totally
honestly,
true.
who knows?
It could absolutely just be like you're all getting into groups,
right?
And to play these games together. What's so interesting is that, like, I wonder if Nintendo feels the need to do any of that stuff because they haven't, and the Switch was an enormous success.
Right.
And you were able to play multiplayer games on it and know it's not as good of an experience as playing multiplayer games on Xbox or PlayStation, but it didn't stop the thing from becoming the second best-selling hardware of all time. So
right. Yeah. No, I mean it's that is an excellent point where it's just like, well, why would they bother? Other than like Nintendo does like to evolve and like change and stuff. And if, yeah, it is very funny because like I was about to say like we'll know in like a week or 2 weeks or whatever, and like no, probably not. We
yeah,
probably won't
I think we probably won't know.
That's interesting and frustrating.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
A question for you. Do I talk about my experience with it on this podcast?
Question for me. That's a question for you.
That's a question for the show, my man. Because I think it's something that we have to agree on that I should talk about it or shouldn't. Because if who knows what kind of action Nintendo could take, but they would take it against Nintendo Cartridge Society,
right,
and not against Patrick Ellers.
So
not that I expect that,
yeah, no, totally. I think that you won't have to because I think all the information about it is going to come out.
That's a great point.
And so we
and
can just talk about so we can just talk about the reports of what happened. Instead of you don't have to share like your personal experience unless you want to.
All right. Well, so then let's all of us just forget the fact that I was accepted in there at all. And that anything I say about this playtest is going to be speculation on my part.
It's all just on background.
That's right.
Over the weekend, hackers... Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, speaking of things on background.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Over the weekend, hackers started releasing data stolen from Pokemon developer Game Freak. According to a statement later released by the company, the breach happened in August 2024. And
so very recent.
Yeah, I haven't really looked into this that much, but we know that company personnel information leaked, source code from previous games, unused Pokemon designs, and scrapped like game features, limited info on upcoming projects, including code names and some TV/film projects that were and possibly still are in development. But rough stuff.
Incredibly rough stuff. And we're not going to talk about like any specifics of these leaks. A lot of what I've seen so far is like relatively just like kind of like blue sky brainstormy stuff. That like I'm sure it was fun for people to make a meal of, like kind of like reveling in like the absurdity of some ideas, or like, oh man, can you believe that they were prototyping this kind of thing and then we never got to see it. All of that is like all very like sparkly and enticing, but is like empty calories as far as I'm concerned.
I think the thing that is unfortunate about it is it's sparkly maybe for some, but I think people have, especially online, have their knives out for Game Freak.
Totally.
And so I think when they are seeing like, oh, this game was supposed to have this,
right,
but then it got cut. No wonder I hated this game.
Right.
Like, I think that's the kind of stuff, especially with like
it's not because I'm not 12 anymore.
Especially like, with developers' names and contact info out there as well. That's the part to me that feels really gross about the whole thing.
Yeah, well, and like you and I have talked about this before, but like we don't really have that like knives out mentality that like carve up these companies so that we can have like one little morsel of something to be excited or angry or whatever about. And so just seeing a big leak like this, not a leak so much as like a hack, where it's just like, oh yeah, that's just the hackers like violating companies' private data, and then like real people are gonna have to like clean that up and like reinforce their own security, and like embarrassing details of whatever are all like out there. And like you don't want people to see a creative project before it's done. Like it's embarrassing.
Yeah, and like so easy to take things out of context where
Yes.
it's like, oh yeah, like what if we did this? And then you explored for a little bit and you're like, no, actually it doesn't fit, or that's it gets changed into something else
Right.
down the line. Um yeah, just the whole thing is just I think pretty bad
Yep.
and gross.
I agree with that. And it sucks that is just like now part of the like news churn is just like this thing uncovered from the Pokemon hack, and it's just like okay, all right, like I guess everyone have your fun, but like this sucks.
Yeah, and it'll forever be something that Game Freak will have to maybe not acknowledge, because like all they acknowledged in their statement was that personnel information had leaked. They didn't talk about
Right.
like source code or anything like that. Um, and but yeah, like forever it'll just be people pointing back to something that came out of this, and just kind of crossing
Right.
their arms. And I don't know. There's just already, to my mind, so much unfortunate negativity around what Game Freak does and misunderstanding of what they're trying to do.
Right.
That I just think this is bad news.
Yeah, and especially when like the audience for a leak or a hack from Game Freak is like that audience, and the audience that like Pokemon is going after, that Venn diagram is two separate circles.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously there are Pokemon enthusiasts who are adults who play the games and also engage in leaked hacked information. But like these games are designed for kids who enjoy playing them, and like that's not going to be the same people who are excited about these like weirdo lore leaks, or a different camera that was being planned for one of the games or whatever.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with like wanting to read that stuff, or like if it's out there, like,
yeah,
you want to engage with it. I think like weaponizing it is the part that
yeah,
really grosses me out.
Yep.
Christmas at Super Nintendo World,
Ding 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 ding.
Universal
ding,
Studios
ding.
Hollywood.
That's like a Christmas train, maybe.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you were doing like
like
outside grocery stores.
Yeah, the
collecting
Salvation Army
donations.
guy. Yeah,
That's
what I was doing, because they dress like Santa, right?
They dress like Santa.
There we go.
But yes, ding ding ding, Christmas at Super Nintendo World, Universal Studios Hollywood, starting November 29th, running through January 6th, 2025, as part of all the Christmas stuff, all the holiday stuff that will be happening at Universal Studios Hollywood. So
did they do holiday decorations last year? Because this will be the second Christmas.
No, they did not.
Okay,
so this
great.
is and I think last year, it was so busy, it was so successful that they didn't feel the need to.
Right.
And so they're introducing it this year as kind of like a marketing beat. But it'll include holiday decorations, a tree with a superstar topper, a photo op with snowmen that are dressed in like Mario's hat and Luigi's hat and scarves.
Okay.
And then special
mittens.
Yeah, that's right, mittens. And then special holiday themed treats at Toadstool Cafe, and special holiday themed merch as well. So I think I saw all of this at Universal Studios Japan.
Oh yeah, sure.
When I was there at the end of last year, beginning of this year. And so like the snowmen, in fact, I think I have Clement and I have pictures with like the snowmen and like the tree and all that kind of stuff. And so they look like snowmen of Mario and Luigi. They're not wearing like the hats and stuff.
Yeah,
like,
okay, all right.
It's all cute, but I don't know. I feel like I've soured on the Super Nintendo. I've only been that one time.
Right.
But I've never felt like the
urge to go back. That's just Universal, though, right?
Yeah, no, that's true.
Like, that's Universal
except for
Studios.
Waterworld.
We love the Waterworld stunt show. We're going to see it every time we go. But, like, yeah, I don't, where, after a period of months without going, I'll be like, we should go back to Disneyland. Like, I get that itch from time to time, and then I go and I have a great time. But, like, I don't think I've ever had that about Universal. Like, we went to like do Super Nintendo Land, and we checked out like a handful of other things, but otherwise I'm not going unless like someone's company picnic is there or something like that. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe the holiday stuff would be a good, like a fun reason to go back.
Sure.
But yeah, I think part of it is the space is so tiny,
so small. Yeah,
and it has been incredibly successful for them, and so that's a good problem for them to have. But is not fun to be in that crowd
Right.
trying to like experience it.
I wonder if they've improved line management since we were there. But like when we were there, I mean, we were in that area an hour before like the rest of the park opened, so like we were walking onto stuff. But by the time we got out of Toadstool Cafe, it was packed,
Yeah.
and like there's not enough space for those like lines, and there's no like switchbacks and all that kind of stuff. So it's just like I don't know. It's not good people management.
Yeah. I'm hoping that they have they do some of the merchandise that they had at Universal Studios Japan, because the merchandise at Super Nintendo World was a big disappointment.
Pretty underwhelming, yeah.
Because it's just very generic, like Mario, Luigi stuff. But for the holidays, they had like a throw pillow that looked like one of those snowmen that you could take a picture with.
See, that's something.
You know, so like so it had like more like fun specific stuff. So
do you think any of that merch is going to make it to the Nintendo World store that's like at City Walk, so you don't have to actually go into the park?
Oh,
because they do, you know, like they have a store like on City Walk there before like crossing through the gates into the park. Because like it's expensive to go.
Maybe they will,
right?
Because they had the on the upper lot, like the top of the park.
Yeah.
They had a Nintendo store there. But I haven't checked City Walk to see what I know they sell the power-up bands, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's where I bought our
other stuff.
power-up bands and that Mario backpack that I now am too embarrassed to wear.
Sounds like theme park merch.
Anywhere, yep.
Yep. But yeah, that starts the end of November and runs through January 6th.
So are you suggesting that we go?
I think, it's been over a year since it opened.
Yeah.
And maybe we should go check it out again.
That might be fun.
Maybe they'll have forks at Toadstool Cafe this time.
I'm not going to start making promises to my heart that I don't think will be kept.
Still Universal.
That's right.
Finally, for the past few years, Super Smash Bros. Director Masahiro Sakurai has published videos on YouTube discussing game development and grab bag topics, including his cat and how he stores all of his like game systems.
What a great video!
It was so good. It was so much
God.
fun. He's winding down his channel now, and in the penultimate episode that released last week, he talked about former president of Nintendo, Satoru Iwata. The two were friends, and Sakurai had many nice things to say about Iwata, calling him, quote, the smartest person he knew, and that Iwata was, quote, full of virtue, relentlessly hardworking, committed to service, and a man who changed the game industry. He also talked about how instead of getting like angry or upset, like Iwata was always very collected, and he would offer like he would be like analytical, and he would offer his thoughts and like advice, but he would like rarely would like blow up. According to Iwata's son, Iwata loved performing the skits for Nintendo Directs, which I feel like came through in his performances.
Mm-hmm.
And Sakurai revealed that it was Iwata who suggested Brothers as part of the title for Super Smash Brothers.
Okay, interesting. So he's saying that it's brothers and not bros?
Well, he's saying it in Japanese.
Sure.
So,
right. Okay.
But, quote, his reasoning, meaning Iwata, was that even though the characters weren't brothers at all, using the word added the nuance that they weren't simply fighting. They were friends who were settling a little disagreement.
Okay, maybe it is bros. Well, that's delightful. Iwata is one of the members of that like front-facing Nintendo personality set from like a decade ago that I always thought was like super special and like had a connection to, and was so sad when he died. Nice to like catch a little glimpse of remembrance of him on Sakurai's channel.
Yeah, it's worth watching the whole video. It's very heartwarming.
All right, Mark, on a heartwarming note, let's close this out. All right, and that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. You should be in our Discord. If you are not, email us and we will send you an invitation. Anthony DeLuca made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying thank you for listening.